Now, because of rising stars like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Green New Deal, or the idea of a Green New Deal, has actually become incredibly popular among voters, especially Democratic voters who are deeply concerned about climate change, but also even among Republicans who care about both jobs and climate change. Now, nonetheless, there's some conventional wisdom in Washington about this idea. That conventional wisdom is basically, oh, no, this is too radical. Oh, actually, getting rid of fossil fuels and transferring over to a 100% renewable energy system within 12 years, it's too radical. Change is too fast, it's too expensive, and more so, the public will never go along with it. Well, there is a new poll out that those politicians who still follow the conventional wisdom, especially among Democratic voters, maybe they should take a look at this, right? Now, new polling from Data for Progress shows that incumbent congressional candidates in 2020 could be ousted by progressive primary challengers if they fail to back a Green New Deal. Now, one example of a politician facing trouble in 2020 is Democratic Representative Kathleen Rice. Now, she's a New York Democrat, and she actually has a pretty good approval rating in her district. Now, during the whole Speaker of the House fight, she did unsuccessfully fight to replace Pelosi. Now, the thing about her is that, well, she wanted to replace Nancy Pelosi with someone even more conservative. Now, again, there was a fight from both the left and the right to try to replace Pelosi as Speaker of the House. She was on the side, Rice was on the side of an even more conservative Speaker of the House. Which, if you pay attention to Pelosi, you would think, wait a minute, more conservative, you might as well just put a Republican up there. Because Nancy Pelosi is actually pretty close to a Republican herself. I mean, she just, over the weekend, she pulled an All Lives Matter when asked if she supported Black Lives Matter. All right, come on. No, you're talking about All Lives Matter, All Lives Matter. No, that should be a really easy thing to say. When somebody asks you, do Black Lives Matter? You should say, yes, they do. And leave it at that. Because saying Black Lives Matter doesn't mean that you're not saying that everyone else's lives matter. We're not talking about everybody else's lives. We're talking about Black lives specifically. And saying that those lives matter doesn't mean that you're not saying everyone else's lives don't matter. So that's again, the correct response on that would have been Black Lives Matter. Yes. But anyway, Pelosi, this woman wanted to replace Pelosi with somebody even more conservative than that. Fantastic, right? Now, the thing is, right, you could tell from her vote for Pelosi, and why that matters is that she's incredibly conservative and so has not backed calls for a Green New Deal, right? Now, in Rice's Long Island district, 300 likely Democratic primary voters were told that Rice does not currently support a Green New Deal, and asked about how a candidate's position on a plan to invest trillions of dollars in the development and distribution of green energy, creating millions of new high-wage jobs while preventing catastrophic climate change, would impact their decisions in the ballot box next primary. So again, this is somebody who is fairly popular in her area, right? And not some radical leftist, right? That the establishment is fairly establishment, right? So would they support her or somebody who supports a Green New Deal? Well, here are the results. When asked if they would support the Green New Deal candidate, 47% of them said absolutely in a primary. Now, only 18% would support an anti-Green New Deal candidate, 22% said no impact, and 13% were not sure. So this could possibly get even higher. Awesome. So, major support for a Green New Deal, right? And Again, this is while Rice has a pretty good approval rating among her constituents. So now, in case you're thinking, of course, that this is that this kind of bold progressive action is only supported by white Bernie bros, well then, think again. It turns out, according to Evan Roth-Smith of Slingshot Strategies, who conducted this poll for Data for Progress, he said that, quote, the strongest margin of support for the Green New Deal is actually older suburban women. He said, quote, that is the constituency for a Green New Deal in Rice's district. People that you would consider to be more conservative look at the Green New Deal and say, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Let's try that. Now, she's not the only one. Massachusetts 6th District, right? Now, that district is currently represented by Representative Seth Moulton. Now, it shows that Democrats who have backed the Green New Deal, but are more centrist and opposed to Pelosi's bid for Speaker, even if they ultimately voted for her, could also face progressive challengers in 2020. Again, a more conservative district, and even so, the people there still say, yes, Green New Deal. Now, Moulton has a 61% favorable rating among these 300 likely Democratic primary voters, according to the Daily Beast. But, quote, when pitted against other prospective Democratic challengers, only 49% said that they would back him. Of those surveyed, 29% said that they were not sure. As Smith put it, Seth Moulton is in real political trouble over his hesitancy to vote for Pelosi. Moulton will be forced to defend his political decision-making and is clearly vulnerable to potential primary challengers who are already registering double-digit support. And though he has endorsed the Green New Deal, which is smart, Moulton faces a real risk from his opposition to Medicare for All, according to Sean McElway, who is Data for Progress founder. He said the base is ready. When a primary challenger emerges, I'd bet on them. So now you also have a Medicare for All, program that is now part of this survey, as well as a Green New Deal. So you can't just be for one and not the other. Now these Democrats are now being considered, or they're now being faced with having to support both as a litmus test in this primary. So now, I think that's a great thing. I think we do need to have some sort of litmus tests, and I think these two things are really a great example. Again, we have only 12 years to stave off catastrophic climate change by going completely carbon neutral and actually taking carbon out of the atmosphere. That report issued by the Trump administration itself is absolutely damning. And if we want to do something about it, we have to take bold progressive action in putting forward renewable energy sources that will be able to power our society. So now what's great about this too is that this is how much the Democrats have actually shifted left since 2016. And guess what? It's because of Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and other progressives that are actually running on bold progressive policy. This is a monumental shift in the conversation that we are now having in America, especially inside the Democratic Party. Now, I'm guessing that if there are candidates that fail to back these policies or openly advocate for them, then it's getting more likely that they will not survive a Democratic primary. Now, Elizabeth Warren, she's a great example of this, right? Elizabeth Warren is running for president. She has been talking about healthcare. Guess what she hasn't mentioned? Medicare for All. Now, that's interesting because she is a co-sponsor for Medicare for All, but when she's out there talking about healthcare, she's not actually openly advocating for a Medicare for All system. That's going to be problematic, as are obviously this primary is going to have a lot of progressives that are staking out a progressive position. If you're not doing that, then you are going to fail to stand out. And you will likely fail this primary process. So, look, we can't have centrist, moderate candidates in 2020 anymore. Especially since in 2016, we had a centrist, moderate candidate, and they ended up losing to President Donald Trump. So everybody in the Democratic primary, Democratic voters now have a desire to vote for people with a bold progressive position. So now is the time to put forward those candidates and to support those candidates, because the will of the voters seems to be quite clear on these issues, and they want progressive policy. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.